starship moved through space like a white dove against the darkness. Captain Jiwon Park stood on the bridge watching the planet grow larger on the screen. Below them, millions of people were hungry. Their crops had died, and they had nothing to eat. Earth had sent help as it always did. "Captain, we're approaching the Tarlaxian homeworld," said the navigation officer. "They're ready to receive the cargo." Jiwon nodded. She had made this journey many times before. Earth always helped those who needed it. Food, medicine, technology, humanity shared everything freely. Some people back home questioned this generosity. They asked why Earth gave so much and asked for nothing in return. But Jiwon believed it was the right thing to do. "Begin transport of the supply containers," she ordered. Dr. Hunwoo Kim walked onto the bridge carrying his datapad. He was smiling as he usually did when they delivered aid. "The Tarlaxians are grateful," he said. "Their children were starving. We're saving lives today." "That's what we do," Jiwon replied. She meant it. 43 years ago, Earth had joined the Galactic Council. Since then, humanity had worked hard to be good neighbors to everyone. They built hospitals on alien worlds. They shared farming techniques that ended hunger. They taught their music and art to species who had never known such things. But not everyone appreciated Earth's kindness. Far across the galaxy, in a chamber of dark metal and cold light, the Velkin Dominion held a meeting. Commander Taejin stood before his superiors, his scaled face twisted in disgust. On the large screen behind him, images of human aid ships played on repeat. "Look at them," Taejin said, his voice full of contempt. "The humans rush to help anyone who cries for assistance. They give away their resources like fools. They smile and bow and apologize when they should demand respect." The Velkin High Command nodded in agreement. They were a warrior race, proud and strong. They had built their empire through conquest and force. To them, kindness was the greatest weakness. A civilization that helped others without demanding anything in return deserved to be exploited. "The humans control valuable territories," said one of the commanders. "The systems they protect are rich in resources. Yet they defend these worlds with only small patrol fleets. They are too soft to fight." "Then we shall take what is rightfully ours," Taejin declared. "But first we must make them appear as the villains. The Galactic Council is full of weak-minded fools who believe in the humans' peaceful nature. We need to change that." Within days, Taejin presented false evidence to the Galactic Council. He showed fabricated data that claimed Earth was secretly building weapons in neutral space. He said humanity was planning to attack peaceful species and take their resources. He painted humans as wolves in sheep's clothing. Ambassador Minho Lee stood before the council to defend his people. He was a calm man, always patient and diplomatic. He had spent years building friendships with other species, always choosing peace over conflict. "These accusations are completely false," Minho said firmly. "We welcome any investigation of our facilities. We have nothing to hide. We invite the Velkin to send inspectors to any location they wish to examine. We will provide full transparency." The other council members whispered among themselves. Some believed the humans. Others were unsure. The Velkin had power and influence on the council. They had allies who owed them favors. Taejin stood and spoke with false sincerity. "The humans offer to show us their facilities only because they have already moved their weapons. This is proof of their guilt. An innocent species would be outraged by such accusations. Instead, they cooperate too easily. This is suspicious." Minho felt frustration rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We cooperate because we value peace. We cooperate because we have nothing to hide. We cooperate because that is what honest people do." But his words fell on many deaf ears. The Velkin had planted seeds of doubt, and those seeds were growing. Back on the olive branch, Captain Jiwon received troubling news. "Captain, we're detecting Velkin warships entering the system," reported her tactical officer. "They're moving toward the Tarlaxian colonies." Jiwon's stomach tightened. "How many ships?" 15 vessels, all military class. They're heavily armed. Jiwon opened a communication channel. "Velkin Fleet, this is Captain Jiwon Park of the Earth vessel Olive Branch. You are entering protected space. Please state your intentions. The face that appeared on her screen was cold and arrogant. It was Commander Tajin himself. Captain Park, the Velkan Dominion is assuming security of this system. Earth's protection is no longer needed or wanted. You will withdraw your vessel immediately. Commander, we have an agreement with the Tarlaxian government to provide aid and protection, Jiwan replied carefully. We cannot abandon them without proper diplomatic channels. Taijin laughed, a harsh and mocking sound. You humans and your diplomacy. You hide behind words because you lack the strength to enforce your will. The Tarlaxians now answer to us. Leave, or be removed by force. Dr. Hyunwoo stepped closer to Jiwan. Captain, we can't just leave. They'll starve without our aid shipments. The Velkan don't care about saving lives. Jiwan knew he was right, but her ship was a diplomatic vessel, lightly armed and designed for peaceful missions. She had a crew of 200 people who trusted her to keep them safe. She needed orders from Earth. Commander Tajin, I am requesting time to consult with my government, Jiwan said. We can resolve this peacefully. You have 6 hours, Tajin replied. After that, any human vessel in this system will be considered hostile. The screen went dark. Jiwan immediately contacted Earth. She explained the situation to Admiral Soman Choi, the commander of Earth's home fleet. Soman listened carefully, her face grave. They're testing us, Soman said. They want to see if we'll fight back or run away. Whatever you do, Captain, stay calm. Don't give them an excuse to attack. I'm bringing this to the Global Defense Council immediately. While Jiwan waited, she watched the Velkan ships position themselves around the planet. They were forming a blockade. Any supply ships trying to reach the Tarlaxians would have to go through them. Dr. Hyunwoo paced the bridge anxiously. Why are they doing this? We've done nothing to provoke them. We've only helped people. That's exactly why, said Lieutenant Dae-hyun, the tactical officer. He was young but smart. They see our kindness as weakness. They think we won't fight because we prefer peace. But we will fight if necessary, won't we? Hyunwoo asked. Jiwan didn't answer immediately. She wanted to believe Earth would stand firm, but she also knew her planet's reputation. For over 4 decades, humanity had never fired the first shot in any conflict. They had always chosen negotiation over violence. The galaxy saw them as peaceful, gentle, and perhaps too soft for real power. The hours passed slowly. Finally, Ambassador Minho's message came through. His face looked tired, and Jiwon could see the weight of difficult decisions in his eyes. Captain Park, the Council has decided to allow Velkan inspectors to visit our facilities once again. We are also withdrawing the olive branch from Tarlaxian space to avoid escalation. We will continue aid to the Tarlaxians through diplomatic channels. Jiwan felt anger flash through her. Ambassador, if we leave, the Velkan will take everything. They'll enslave these people. I know, Minho said quietly. But we must trust the process. We must believe that peace will prevail. Begin your withdrawal, Captain. That's an order. Jiwan closed her eyes for a moment. Then she gave the command she hated. Helm, set course for Earth. Prepare to leave the system. As the olive branch turned away, Dr. Hyunwoo watched the planet shrink behind them. Down there, people who had thanked them just hours ago now watched their protectors abandon them. The Velkan ships moved closer to the planet like predators closing in on prey. They think we're weak, Hyunwoo whispered. Maybe they're right, Dae-hyun said bitterly, but Captain Jiwan Park said nothing. She only watched the stars and wondered if kindness had a limit. She wondered if there would come a day when humanity would have to show the galaxy what they truly were, beneath all that gentleness. She wondered if that day was coming soon. The olive branch was 3 days from Earth when everything went wrong. Captain Jiwan had just finished her morning rounds when alarms screamed throughout the ship. Red lights flashed on every wall. Her crew rushed to their stations. Report, Jiwan shouted as she ran onto the bridge. Velkan ships decloaking behind us, Lieutenant Dae-hyun called out. 4 warships. They're charging weapons. Shields up. Evasive maneuvers, Jiwan commanded. But she knew the truth. Her ship was built for peace, not war. They had basic shields and light defensive weapons. Nothing that could stand against military vessels, Captain. Incoming transmission from the Velkin lead ship, said the communications officer. On screen, Ji-Wan ordered. Commander Tajan appeared, and he was smiling. It was not a kind smile. Captain Park, your ship has been found carrying illegal weapons. You are ordered to surrender immediately. That's a lie, Ji-Wan shot back. We carry medical supplies and farming equipment. You can scan our cargo yourself. We already have, Tajan replied, and our scans show weapons. You have 30 seconds to surrender or we will open fire. Dr. Hyunwoo grabbed Ji-Wan's arm. Captain, they're going to kill us no matter what we do. This is a setup. They want to make Earth look like the aggressors. Ji-Wan understood instantly. If the Olive Branch surrendered, the Velkin would plant evidence and parade the crew as proof of human treachery. If they fought back or ran, they would be destroyed and labeled as criminals fleeing justice. Either way, the Velkin won. Open all channels, Ji-Wan ordered. All frequencies, maximum broadcast range. I want every ship in this sector to hear this. All channels open, Captain. Ji-Wan stood tall and spoke clearly. This is Captain Ji-Wan Park of the Earth vessel Olive Branch. We are under attack by Velkin warships without provocation. We are a diplomatic vessel carrying humanitarian aid. We have no illegal weapons. This is an act of war. Whatever happens here today, let the galaxy know that humanity sought peace until the very end. 15 seconds, Tajan said coldly. Get everyone to the emergency pods, Ji-Wan told her crew. Transmit all our sensor data and communication logs. Make sure Earth knows what really happened here. Dr. Hyunwoo worked frantically at his station. I'm uploading everything to a distress beacon. If we launch it now, it might escape before... The ship shook violently. The first weapon strike hit the Olive Branch's port side, tearing through the shields like they were paper. Explosions ripped through the engineering section. People screamed. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting. Hull breach on decks 5 through 7, Daehyun shouted. We're venting atmosphere. Another blast hit them. This one struck the crew quarters. 47 people died instantly, never knowing what killed them. They were scientists, doctors, teachers, people who had devoted their lives to helping others. Launch the beacon. Ji-Wan screamed over the chaos. Hyunwoo slammed his hand on the control. A small pod ejected from the dying ship and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Inside it was the complete record of the attack, video evidence of the Velkin's unprovoked assault. A third blast struck the bridge. The explosion threw Ji-Wan across the room. She felt pain explode through her body as she hit the wall. Through blurry vision, she saw her crew dying around her. These people had trusted her. They had followed her orders. And now they were being murdered for nothing more than being kind. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was Tajan's face on the flickering screen. Still smiling, on Earth the news spread like wildfire. The distress beacon reached human space and broadcasted its terrible message. People watched in horror as the Olive Branch was torn apart. They saw Captain Ji-Wan's final transmission. They counted the dead. 47 human beings killed while trying to help others. Something changed in humanity that day. The anger was not loud at first. It was cold and quiet, like ice forming over a deep ocean. People didn't shout in the streets. They didn't riot. They simply decided that enough was enough. Admiral Summon Choi stood in the command center of Earth's home fleet, watching the footage for the 20th time. Around her, officers worked quietly and efficiently. Nobody needed to be told what to do. They all knew. Status report, Soman said calmly. All fleet assets are returning to Earth, reported Captain Yoonji Han, her tactical coordinator. Deep space vessels will arrive within 48 hours. We'll have full strength in 3 days. The Velkin have seized 3 of our outposts in neutral territory, added Colonel Jin Ho Kang. They claim the outposts were being used to smuggle weapons. Of course they do, Soman replied. Her voice was ice. And the Galactic Council? They've called an emergency session, said Chief Engineer Sun-Ho Park. But the Velkin are stalling. They want time to consolidate their position. Soman nodded slowly. She had commanded fleets for 27 years. She had always followed orders, always chosen the peaceful path when possible. But she had also spent those 27 years preparing for this exact moment. Every admiral in human history knew this day might come. The day when kindness would not be enough. The day when mercy would be seen as permission to attack. Contact all battle group commanders. Soman ordered. Tell them to prepare for immediate deployment. Full combat readiness. At the United Nations building in Geneva, Ambassador Minho Lee received a visitor. Counselor Youngji Bae entered his office without knocking. She was younger than Minho, and she had always been more direct. Some called her aggressive. Minho called her honest. They killed 47 people, Youngji said without preamble. They destroyed a hospital ship. They're seizing our territory, and the council does nothing. The council needs time to investigate, Minho replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Investigation? Youngji's laugh was bitter. We have video evidence. We have sensor logs. We have the testimony of 3 rescued survivors. What more do they need? They're afraid of the Velkin, so they pretend to need more time. Minho closed his eyes. She was right, and he knew it. For 43 years, Earth had played by the rules. They had been patient. They had been understanding. They had believed that peace was always possible if everyone just talked things through. But sometimes people didn't want to talk. Sometimes they only understood strength. What does Earth want me to do? Minho asked quietly. Youngji placed a document on his desk. The Global Defense Council has authorized a military response. Admiral Soman is mobilizing the entire fleet. I'm here to tell you that your mission has changed, Ambassador. You're not here to make peace anymore. You're here to deliver an ultimatum. Minho picked up the document and read it. His hands shook slightly. The words were simple and direct. The Velkin had 72 hours to withdraw from all human territories and return all captured personnel. If they refused, Earth would consider it an act of total war. They'll laugh at this, Minho said. They think we're weak. They think we won't actually fight. Then they're going to learn a very painful lesson, Youngji replied. The council meets tomorrow. You will present this ultimatum, and you will make them understand that humanity's patience has limits. That night, across Earth, people held vigils for the 47 dead. They lit candles and spoke their names. They remembered that these were good people who had died trying to help others. Parents mourned their children. Children mourned their parents. And everyone felt the same cold anger growing in their hearts. In the military academies, young officers studied the footage and asked their instructors questions. Why did we let them do this? Why didn't we fight back? The instructors gave the same answer everywhere. We did fight back. You're looking at the fight right now. You're watching humanity realize that kindness has to have teeth, or it's just weakness waiting to be exploited. In orbit around Earth, warships began to gather. The home fleet assembled like pieces of a vast puzzle. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, dreadnoughts. Ships that had been scattered across human space for decades now came together. Engineers worked around the clock to arm and fuel every vessel. Marines loaded into dropships. Pilots ran combat simulations. Admiral Soman stood on the bridge of her flagship, Seoul's Pride. Through the viewports, she could see hundreds of vessels moving into formation. Each one represented thousands of hours of work, millions of tons of resources, and the hopes of billions of people. Lieutenant Dae-hyun, one of the survivors from the Olive Branch, had been assigned to her tactical team. His arm was in a sling, but he had refused to take medical leave. He stood at his station, studying enemy positions with cold determination. "Lieutenant, are you ready for this?" someone asked him. Dae-hyun looked at her with eyes that had seen too much death. "Admiral, I watched my friends die. I watched them murder people whose only crime was being kind. So yes, I'm ready." "I'm more than ready," Soman nodded. She understood. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. They were about to learn that peace-loving people could become the most dangerous enemies, because they understood exactly what they were fighting for. They weren't fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting because every other option had been tried and found worthless. "Signal all ships," Soman commanded. "Prepare for jump to Velkin space. It's time to bring our people home. And it's time to show the Velkin what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness." The fleet began to move. The Velkin fleet commander stood on his bridge, confident and relaxed. Commander Taejin had been promoted after his successful attack on the human vessel. Now he commanded the forces occupying the 3 human outposts. Life was good. The humans had done nothing in response to his aggression. This confirmed everything the Velkin believed about them. "They are cowards," Taejin told his officers. "They talk about justice and peace, but when challenged, they run away. Earth will send angry messages to the Council. They will complain and demand apologies, but they will not fight." "They lack the courage," his second officer laughed. Perhaps we should take more of their territories. If they won't defend what they have, why should we stop? Tajin was about to agree when his sensor officer called out urgently. Commander, detecting massive energy signatures. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, very close to our position. How many ships? Tajin demanded. The sensor officer's face went pale. All of them, sir. I'm reading at least 300 vessels. Battleship class and larger. They're human ships and they just appeared right on top of us. Taijin felt his confidence evaporate like water in a desert. 300 ships? Impossible. Human fleets were small, scattered across their territories for defense and aid missions. They shouldn't be able to assemble such a force. And they definitely shouldn't be able to move it here so quickly. On the bridge of Sol's Pride, Admiral Soman watched her fleet materialize around the Velkan positions. The humans had used quantum displacement drives, technology they had developed in secret over the past 15 years. These drives didn't just make ships faster, they allowed nearly instant travel across vast distances. The galaxy didn't know humans had this capability. The Velkan certainly didn't. All ships in position, Admiral, reported Chief Engineer Sunho Park. The Velkan fleet is completely surrounded. They're attempting to power up their weapons. Jam their communications, Somin ordered. I don't want them calling for reinforcements. Tactical, target their weapon systems only. I want them disabled, not destroyed. We'll need prisoners for the tribunal. Yes, Admiral. The human fleet opened fire with surgical precision. Plasma lances, another secret technology, lanced through space and struck Velkan ships with pinpoint accuracy. These weren't the clumsy energy weapons that other species used. Plasma lances were focused beams of superheated matter that cut through shields and armor like a knife through paper. Within seconds, every Velkan warship in the area was disabled, floating helplessly in space. Taijin couldn't believe what he was seeing. His flagship's weapons were offline. Engines were damaged. Shields had collapsed, and the human fleet hadn't even taken a scratch. How was this possible? Get me a communication channel to the human commander, he shouted. Admiral Soman's face appeared on his screen. She looked calm, almost serene. Commander Taijin, you are under arrest for unprovoked military aggression and the murder of 47 human beings. You will surrender your vessel immediately. Your crew will be treated according to the laws of war. Resist and you will be eliminated. You can't do this, Taijin snarled. The Galactic Council will never allow. The Council can discuss it later, Somin interrupted. Right now you have 60 seconds to surrender. After that I'm sending Marines to take your ship by force. Choose quickly. Taijin looked around his bridge. His crew stared at him waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? They were helpless. The humans had rendered his entire fleet impotent in seconds. If they could do that, what chance did his crew have in a boarding action? Before Taijin could respond, something new appeared on his sensors. A single small ship had appeared next to his flagship. It hadn't traveled through space. It had simply materialized there as if it had jumped directly onto them. On the Ghost of Incheon, Captain Yoonji Han smiled. Her stealth frigate was invisible to Velkan sensors even when it was sitting right beside them. She had spent the last 15 minutes attaching boarding pods to the Velkan flagship's hull. Now those pods opened, and Marines poured into the enemy ship. Colonel Jinho Kang led the assault personally. His Marines moved through the Velkan flagship like ghosts, fast and silent. They wore powered armor that made them stronger and faster than any biological soldier. Their weapons were equipped with targeting systems that never missed. Within minutes, they had secured the bridge. Taijin barely had time to reach for his sidearm before a Marine had him pinned to the floor. The colonel stood over him, removing his helmet. Jinho's face was young, but his eyes were hard as steel. Commander Taijin, you're coming with us. Your war is over. The entire operation from fleet arrival to capture of the Velkan commander took exactly 20 minutes. At the 3 occupied human outposts, the story was similar. Human forces appeared without warning, disabled all resistance, and retook the stations. Not a single human casualty was reported. The Velkan defenders were captured and secured before they even understood what was happening. Dr. Hyun-woo Kim, recovered from his injuries aboard the Olive Branch, watched the operation from Earth. He was giving a press conference, and his words were being broadcast to every species in the galaxy. We offered kindness because we chose to, not because we had to, Hyun-woo said clearly. For over 40 years, humanity has been a peaceful member of the galactic community. We shared our technology. We healed the sick. We fed the hungry. We did this because it was right, not because we were weak. The Velkin made a terrible mistake. They thought our open hand meant we had no fist. They were wrong. His words spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species who had quietly mocked humanity's gentleness suddenly realized they had misunderstood everything. The humans weren't weak. They were restrained. There was a big difference. At the Galactic Council, Ambassador Minho stood before the assembled representatives. Many of them looked uncomfortable. Some appeared afraid. They had all seen the footage of the human military in action. The speed, the precision, the overwhelming force. It was terrifying. "The Council calls for an immediate ceasefire," announced the Council chairman, a floating jellyfish-like creature called a prismaran. "Both sides must withdraw and enter negotiations." Minho's response was cold and sharp. No, the chamber went silent. In 43 years, no human representative had ever said no to the Council. "No," the chairman repeated, confusion in his translated voice. "Earth will accept nothing less than complete Velkin withdrawal from all territories they have seized, full reparations for damages and deaths, and the surrender of all personnel responsible for the attack on the Olive Branch. These are not negotiable terms. They are demands." A Velkin representative jumped to his feet. "You cannot make demands of the Council. You are obligated to participate in the peace process." Minho turned to face the Velkin delegate. His voice remained calm, but everyone in the chamber could hear the steel beneath it. "We participated in your peace process. We showed you our facilities. We withdrew our ships. We tried diplomacy. Your people responded by murdering 47 unarmed humans and seizing our territory. The time for talk has passed. Now you will face consequences." "This is outrageous," the Velkin shouted. "We demand the Council take action against this aggression." The chairman looked uncomfortable. "Ambassador Minho, the Council must maintain neutrality. We cannot support military action by any party." "Then stay neutral," Minho replied. "Watch from the sidelines as you watched when we were attacked. Earth doesn't need your permission to defend itself, but understand this clearly. The galaxy will see how this situation resolves. Every species will learn whether justice means anything, or if it's just something you talk about while the strong prey on the weak. Choose what kind of galaxy you want to live in." Intelligence Officer Hana Yoon had spent weeks analyzing captured Velkin data. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The Velkin hadn't attacked on impulse. They had planned this operation for months. They had specifically studied humanity's response patterns. They had identified Earth's kindness as a weakness to exploit. They had truly believed, that humans would never fight back. She presented her findings to Admiral Somin. "They chose us because we were nice. They thought nice meant helpless. They prepared an entire campaign to take over human space piece by piece. The attack on the Olive Branch was just the opening move." Somin studied the data. Maps showed Velkin plans to seize human colonies one by one. Plans to enslave human populations. Plans to strip Earth's territories of resources. They had been so confident in human weakness that they hadn't even bothered to prepare for real resistance. "They're learning now," Somin said quietly. "Send this data to Ambassador Minho. The galaxy needs to see what the Velkin really planned. Let everyone understand that we're not the aggressors here. We're preventing a genocide." Back in Velkin space, the human fleet was gathering strength. Ships from every human system were arriving. The fleet that had seemed impossibly large was growing even larger. 200 ships became 400, then 600. Species across the galaxy watched in amazement and fear. Nobody had realized humans had built such a massive military. The truth was simple but had been hidden in plain sight. While humanity had been sharing medical technology and farming techniques, they had also been preparing for the worst. Every aid ship had a warship built in the same shipyard. Every peaceful colony had defense satellites in orbit. Every smiling diplomat was backed by soldiers who trained constantly for war. Humanity had hoped they would never need these preparations. They had prayed that kindness would be enough. But they had also been smart enough to prepare for the day when it wasn't. Captain Ji-won Park woke up in a hospital on Earth. Her injuries had been severe, but human medicine was excellent. She would survive. A nurse told her that most of her crew had survived as well. The emergency pods had worked. Out of 200 people aboard the Olive Branch, 153 had lived, but 47 had not. When she was strong enough to walk, Ji-won went to see the memorial. On a wall in the military cemetery, 47 names were carved in stone. These people had died doing good. They had died helping others. They had died because someone mistook kindness for permission to kill. Admiral Soman found her there. The two women stood in silence for a long moment. "They're taking the fight to Vulcan Prime," Soman said finally. "We're going to end this war before it spreads. I wanted you to know. You'll have justice for your crew." Jiwan touched the wall gently. "It's not about justice anymore, is it? It's about making sure this never happens again." "Yes," Somin agreed. "The galaxy needs to learn. You don't attack humans. You don't exploit our kindness. You don't test our patience. Because when you push us too far, we push back, and we push back hard." General Kiwan Song stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire galactic theater. He was the supreme commander of Earth's armed forces, a position that had been mostly ceremonial for decades. Not anymore. Now every decision he made could mean life or death for millions. "Status of all battle groups," he ordered. "1st through 5th fleets are in position around Vulcan core systems," reported his aide. "6th and 7th fleets are securing supply lines. 8th fleet is protecting our home territories. We have complete strategic superiority." Kiwan nodded slowly. The pieces were all in place.
Humanity had spent 43 years building a military machine while pretending to be simple peacekeepers.
They had ships that could appear anywhere instantly. They had weapons that made shields useless. They had soldiers who were faster and stronger than any biological enemy. And they had something else, something more important than any technology. They had purpose. "What about allied forces?" Kaiwan asked. "Growing by the hour, sir. The Tarlaxians have pledged their entire fleet. The Halixians are sending support ships. Even the Prismaran Collective has quietly offered medical vessels. Everyone who has suffered under Vulcan aggression wants to join us." This was the part that surprised the Vulcan most. They had assumed their victims would be too afraid to resist. They were wrong. Fear had kept these species quiet. But now that humanity had shown that the Vulcan could be beaten, courage was spreading like fire through dry grass. On the planet Tarlax Prime, people watched the human fleet in orbit and wept with gratitude. They had been abandoned when the Vulcan came. They had thought humanity's kindness was just words, but now they understood. Humans had retreated not because they were afraid, but because they were preparing. They had left to gather strength, and now they had returned as liberators. Science Director Minji Oh walked into a press conference on Earth. She was about to reveal secrets that had been kept for 15 years. Secrets that would change the galaxy's understanding of humanity forever. "Good afternoon," she began. "I am here to explain how Earth has maintained its military readiness while appearing to focus only on peaceful endeavors. The answer is simple. We did both simultaneously." She activated a display showing the quantum displacement drive. This technology allows instant travel across vast distances. We developed it 12 years ago but kept it secret. While the galaxy believed we traveled at conventional speeds, our ships could actually be anywhere within hours. Next, she showed the plasma lance weapons. These weapons use focused magnetic fields to direct superheated plasma with perfect accuracy. They penetrate shields by operating on a different energy frequency than conventional weapons. We developed them 10 years ago. The reporters were stunned. One asked the obvious question: why did you keep these technologies secret? You could have shared them, helped other species. Minji's expression was sad. We wanted to share them. But our security advisors warned us that any technology can be weaponized. We decided to wait, to make sure the galaxy was ready for such power. The Vulcan attack proved we were right to be cautious. Imagine if they had possessed these weapons when they attacked the olive branch. Another reporter raised her hand. What other technologies do you have? Many, Minji replied honestly. Our agricultural aid programs contained microscopic sensors. They gathered data on soil conditions, weather patterns, and crop yields. They also gathered intelligence on military installations, ship movements, and weapons development. We know the military capabilities of every species in the Council. We have detailed maps of every major world. We did this not to attack anyone, but to ensure we could defend ourselves if necessary. The revelation shocked the galaxy. Those kind humans, the ones who had been helping everyone, had been gathering intelligence the whole time. They had been preparing for war while everyone thought they were just being nice. Some species felt betrayed. Others felt respect. All of them felt fear. At Vulcan Prime, panic was spreading through the government. The human fleet had arrived in their home system 3 days ago. and established a complete blockade. Nothing entered. Nothing left. The Velkin military was desperately trying to organize a defense, but they were learning a terrible lesson about the difference between occupying weak neighbors and fighting a prepared enemy. Captain Ji-ho Moon commanded the carrier Busan's Fury, one of the largest ships in the human fleet. His vessel carried 300 fighter craft and 5,000 Marines. Right now, those fighters were flying patterns around Velkin Prime's orbital defenses, systematically destroying every weapons platform. Target the command station, Ji-ho ordered. Precision strike. No collateral damage, his weapons officer locked onto the station. Confirmed. Target is purely military. No civilian structures within the blast radius. Fire. A plasma lance shot across space and punched through the station's shields and armor. The explosion was brief and controlled. The station went dark, its weapons offline, but the structure remained intact. The crew would survive to surrender. This was happening across the entire planet. Human forces were dismantling Velkin defenses with surgical precision. Every strike hit only military targets. Civilian areas were completely untouched. When Velkin commanders tried to use civilian populations as shields, human intelligence would identify the true target and find a way to hit it without harming innocents. The Velkin had expected human attacks to be sloppy and emotional, driven by revenge. Instead, they were facing military operations executed with cold perfection. Every shot counted. Every move was calculated. There was no waste, no excess, no anger. Just efficient, devastating effectiveness. Inside the Velkin Capitol building, the High Command held an emergency meeting. They were losing, and they knew it. Their fleets were destroyed or scattered. Their defenses were falling. And the humans kept coming, unstoppable as a glacier. We must use the civilian population, suggested one commander. If we place our military headquarters in residential areas, they won't dare attack. They'll find a way, another commander replied bitterly. They have technology we can't even understand. They mapped our entire planet while we thought they were just delivering food aid. They know where every soldier sleeps. They know which buildings are military and which are civilian. We can't hide from them. Commander Taejin sat in a cell aboard Soul's Pride, listening to reports of his homeworld's defeat. The irony was not lost on him. He had attacked the humans because he thought they were weak. Now he was a prisoner watching his people lose a war they had started. A guard opened his cell door. Admiral Sumin entered, flanked by 2 Marines. She looked at Taijin with cold eyes. Your government is preparing to surrender, she told him. They want to negotiate terms. Then you've won, Taijin said bitterly. Are you satisfied? Will you enslave us as you claim we would have enslaved you? Sumin's laugh was harsh. No, we're not like you. We'll accept your surrender, disarm your military, and establish oversight to ensure you never threaten anyone again. Your people will keep their freedom. They'll keep their culture. They'll keep their lives. Because despite everything you've done, we're still better than you. She turned to leave, then paused. You made a calculation. You looked at humanity and decided we were too kind to be dangerous. You were wrong. Kindness isn't weakness. It's strength under control. The truly strong don't need to prove themselves by hurting others. They only fight when they must, and when they do, they fight to win quickly and decisively. You're learning that lesson now. On Earth, Ambassador Minho returned to the Galactic Council. The chamber was packed with representatives from every species. They all wanted to see what humanity would demand from the Velkin. The Velkin Dominion has offered unconditional surrender, Minho announced. Earth accepts. These are our terms. He displayed the treaty. The Velkin military would be reduced to 20% of its current size. The rest would be disbanded and returned to civilian life. Velkin ships could only operate within their own territory. War reparations would be paid to every species the Velkin had harmed. Human observers would be stationed in the Velkin government for 25 years to ensure compliance. Any violation of the treaty would result in immediate military intervention. These terms are harsh, protested a council member. These terms are just, Minho replied. The Velkin planned genocide against humanity. They attacked a hospital ship. They murdered unarmed people. They invaded neutral territory. And they did all of this because they thought we wouldn't fight back. Now they know better. Now everyone knows better. He turned to address the entire council. Let this be a lesson to the galaxy. Earth seeks peace. We always will. But peace cannot exist without the willingness to defend it. We will not be victims. We will not stand by while aggressive species prey on the weak. From this day forward, any species that respects sovereignty and life will find in humanity the most loyal friend. Any species that chooses aggression will find in humanity the most terrible enemy. Counselor Youngji stood beside him. Earth is proposing a new defense pact. Any species that commits to peaceful coexistence and mutual defense may join. Together, we will ensure that what happened to humanity never happens to anyone else. Bullies and conquerors will face united opposition. The age of prey and predator is over. Now begins the age of justice. Over the next weeks, 17 species joined Earth's defense pact. The alliance included former Vulcan victims, neutral species who had been too afraid to choose sides, and even some former Vulcan allies who had been waiting for an opportunity to escape. General Kiwan received the final battle reports. The war had lasted 41 days from the first human counterattack to the Vulcan surrender. Human casualties were minimal. Vulcan military casualties were significant, but not catastrophic. Civilian casualties were nearly zero. Thanks to human precision and restraint, we could have destroyed them completely, his aide observed. We had the power. Yes, Kiwan agreed. But that's not who we are. We fight to stop threats, not to commit genocide. The Vulcan people will remember that. When their leaders told them we were monsters, we proved we were better than that. That's worth more than any military victory. The war was over. Humanity had won not just through superior technology, but through superior principles. They had shown the galaxy that the truly civilized species fights only when necessary, fights with restraint, and stops fighting the moment victory is achieved. The Vulcan would rebuild, diminished and watched, but alive. Other species would think carefully before testing humanity's patience. And across the galaxy, people who had suffered under stronger neighbors looked to Earth with hope. The age of kindness without teeth was over. The age of peace enforced by justice had begun. 3 months after the Vulcan surrender, the galaxy had changed. Not in obvious ways. The stars still shone. Ships still traveled between worlds. Trade continued. But something fundamental had shifted in how species saw each other, and more importantly, how they saw humanity. Captain Ji-won Park stood at the window of her new ship. It was called the Olive Branch II, a diplomatic vessel like her old command. But this one was different. Outside, 4 destroyer escorts maintained formation around her. Humanity still believed in peace and kindness. They just made sure that kindness had protection now. Captain, we're approaching the Helixian homeworld, reported her new first officer. They're requesting permission for you to address their planetary council. Ji-won smiled. The Helixians had been one of the first species to join Earth's defense alliance. They were a peaceful people, much like humans, who had suffered under stronger neighbors for generations. Now they wanted to learn how to defend themselves without losing their gentle nature. Tell them I'd be honored, Ji-won replied. Dr. Hyunwoo Kim walked onto the bridge, carrying his usual datapad. He had returned to his work with Ji-won, but he was different now. They all were. You couldn't watch your friends die and remain unchanged. But instead of becoming bitter, Hyunwoo had become more determined, more focused on helping others while ensuring they could protect themselves. The Helixians want us to help them build medical facilities on their colony worlds, he said. But they also want to establish defense satellites. They're learning the lesson we tried to teach everyone. You can be kind and strong at the same time. We're all learning that lesson, Ji-won agreed. Even us. For too long, we thought being peaceful meant avoiding conflict at all costs. We forgot that sometimes peace requires strength. The ship entered orbit around the Helixian world. It was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. Below, millions of people looked up at the human vessel with gratitude and hope. Earth's victory over the Vulcan had freed many species from fear. Now those species wanted to ensure they would never be vulnerable again. At the Galactic Council, the reconvened session was very different from previous meetings. For one thing, the chamber had 17 new members. Species who had been too small or weak to join before now sat alongside the major powers. Earth had sponsored their membership, arguing that every civilized species deserved a voice in galactic affairs. Ambassador Minho stood before the council, but he no longer stood alone. Beside him were representatives from the Terran Defense Alliance, 17 species who had pledged mutual protection and cooperation. Together, they represented nearly 40% of the galaxy's population and resources. The council must recognize that the old order has failed, Minho said clearly. For too long, peace meant allowing the strong to dominate the weak. It meant pretending that aggression would go away if we ignored it. The Vulcan attack on Earth proved this approach was wrong. We propose a new system. He displayed a document that had been prepared by representatives from all Alliance members, the Galactic Peace Accord. Any species that signs this document agrees to 3 simple principles. First, respect for sovereignty. No species may invade or occupy another's territory. Second, protection of sapient rights. No species may enslave, genocide, or systematically harm others. Third, mutual defense. If any signatory is attacked, all signatories respond together. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Some species were eager to sign. Others were worried about losing their independence. A few powerful species used to doing whatever they wanted were openly hostile to the idea. "This is an attempt by Earth to control the galaxy," shouted a representative from the Korthian hegemony. "You seek to impose your human values on everyone." Councillor Youngji stepped forward. Her voice was sharp and clear. "These are not human values. These are universal values. Don't attack others. Don't enslave people. Help your allies when they're in danger. If you think those are uniquely human concepts, then perhaps you should look at your own culture and ask why you find them so threatening." Silence fell over the chamber. The representative sat down, having no good answer to that question. The council chairman, a Prismaran floating in his environmental tank, spoke carefully. "This represents a significant change to how galactic affairs have been conducted. The council must consider this proposal carefully." "Of course," Minho agreed. "Take all the time you need, but understand that the Terran Defense Alliance exists whether the council approves or not. We will defend our members. We will respond to aggression. We will enforce peace through strength. The council can join us in this effort or watch from the sidelines. The choice is yours." Admiral Soman had been promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of the new Terran Defense Force. This was a permanent military formation. Ships and personnel dedicated specifically to rapid response when Alliance members faced threats. Right now, she was conducting training exercises with ships from 6 different species. It was challenging. Each species had different communication styles, different tactical doctrines, different capabilities. But Soman was patient. She remembered that humanity had learned patience through 43 years of being kind even when it was hard. Now they were teaching that lesson to others. "The Tarlaxian ships are having trouble with the formation flying," reported Lieutenant Dehyun, who had been promoted and given a key position on her staff. "They're not used to close coordination. Send them our training materials," Soman ordered, "and assign one of our frigates to practice with them. They'll learn. They're motivated, and motivation matters more than natural talent." She watched the mixed fleet on her displays. Human ships in formation with Tarlaxian cruisers, Helixian frigates, and vessels from a dozen other species. It was beautiful in its own way. All these different people working together, learning to trust each other, preparing to defend each other. This was what humanity had always wanted. Not conquest, not domination, just cooperation and mutual respect. The Vulcan had forced humanity to show their military strength, but now that strength was being used to create something better. On Vulcan Prime, the occupation was proceeding smoothly. Human observers were stationed in the government, but they didn't run things. The Vulcan still governed themselves. They made their own laws, collected their own taxes, lived their own lives. The humans were there only to ensure no one started planning another war. Commander Tai Jin, released from prison after the war trials, walked the streets of his home city. He was not imprisoned for life, as many expected. The humans had decided that rank-and-file soldiers following orders would be pardoned. Only the High Command, those who had planned the genocide, faced permanent consequences. Taijin had been following orders, so after his testimony at the trials, he was freed. People stared at him as he walked, some with anger, blaming him for starting the war, others with sympathy, knowing he had been just another soldier doing his duty. Taijin didn't know which was worse. He stopped at a memorial in the city center. The Vulcan had built it themselves, a monument listing the names of everyone who had died in the war. Vulcan soldiers and human victims alike. At the top were the 47 names from the Olive Branch. Below them, thousands more. All dead because Taijin's superiors had made a terrible miscalculation. A human observer approached him. It was Colonel Jinho, the Marine who had captured him. Taejin tensed, expecting accusations or mockery. "I'm sorry," Jinho said simply. Taejin stared at him in confusion. "You're sorry? You won. My people attacked yours and you defeated us. Why would you apologize?" "Because war is terrible even when necessary," Jinho replied. "These people died because your leaders made bad choices. But they were still people. Soldiers following orders, civilians caught in the crossfire. I'm sorry you lost them. I'm sorry anyone had to die." Taejin felt something break inside him. For months he had expected the humans to be cruel victors, rubbing their triumph in Velkan faces. Instead, they were building schools, sharing technology, helping the Velkan economy recover, and now one of their soldiers was standing beside him, mourning Velkan dead. "We were wrong about you," Taejin whispered. "We thought kindness meant weakness. We thought you were prey. We were so wrong." "Yes," Jinho agreed. "But wrong can be fixed. That's what we're doing here. Fixing the mistakes so they don't happen again." Back on Earth, people gathered for a ceremony. It had been exactly 1 year since the attack on the olive branch. The monument listing the 47 names had been expanded. Now it was a garden, a place of peace and reflection. Each of the dead had a tree planted in their memory. People came to sit beneath those trees and remember what had been lost and what had been learned. Captain Ji-won stood among them wearing her dress uniform. Beside her were the survivors from her crew, people who had lived through the attack and its aftermath. They placed flowers at the base of the monument together, remembering friends they would never see again. Ambassador Minho gave a speech. He talked about sacrifice and choice, about being kind while remaining strong, about building a galaxy where peace was more than just the absence of war. "These people died because they were kind," Minho said. "They died helping others, but their deaths taught the galaxy an important lesson. Kindness is not permission to attack. Peace is not weakness. Humanity will always prefer to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than harm, to cooperate rather than conquer. But when you force us to fight, we will fight with everything we have. And when we win, we will be generous in victory because that's who we are." He paused, looking at all the faces watching him. "A young alien diplomat recently asked me if humans are warriors or peacekeepers. I told him we are whatever we need to be. We prefer to plant gardens and cure diseases and write poetry. But when necessary, we become warriors. And when the war is over, we return to being gardeners and healers and poets. That's what makes us human. We can be terrible in battle and gentle in peace. We can be both." In orbit, construction continued on humanity's expanded fleet. More ships were being built, larger and more powerful than before. But for every warship launched, 3 civilian vessels were completed. Hospital ships, colony transports, science vessels. Earth was preparing for war while hoping for peace, the eternal balance of the responsible civilization. Captain Yoonji, commander of the Ghost of Incheon, supervised the construction of 5 new stealth frigates. These ships represented humanity's cutting edge, able to appear anywhere instantly and operate without detection. They were weapons of tremendous power, but Yoonji knew they would spend most of their time doing reconnaissance, gathering intelligence and supporting diplomatic missions. Power was only useful if you didn't have to use it. Dr. Hyunwoo published a paper that became famous across the galaxy. It was called The Strength of Gentle Species. In it, he argued that peaceful civilizations developed certain advantages that warrior cultures lacked. They were better at cooperation, better at innovation, better at long-term thinking. Warrior cultures focused on immediate dominance. Peaceful cultures focused on sustainable growth. Given time, the peaceful cultures always became stronger. The Velkan could have learned this lesson peacefully, he wrote. Instead, they learned it through defeat. But the lesson remains the same. Kindness is not weakness. It is strength that has chosen not to harm you. Yet, the Galactic Council eventually voted to adopt a modified version of Earth's Galactic Peace Accord. 73 species signed it immediately. Over the next year, 40 more added their names. The few holdouts were species that still dreamed of conquest, and they found themselves increasingly isolated. Nobody wanted to trade with them. Nobody wanted diplomatic relations. They were pariahs left alone while the rest of the galaxy moved forward together. 5 years after the Velkan War, Captain Ji-won stood on the bridge of the Olive Branch 2, approaching yet another world that needed help. But this time she smiled. Behind her ship were escorts. Around her in space were allied vessels from a dozen different species, all of them working together to deliver aid, build hospitals, share knowledge, This is what we always wanted, Dr. Hyunwoo said, standing beside her. A galaxy where being kind doesn't make you vulnerable. We had to show them our teeth first, Jiwon replied. But yes, this is what it was always about. Below them, people on the planet looked up at the fleet with hope instead of fear. They knew these ships carried medicine and food and teachers. They also knew these ships could defend themselves if necessary. The combination of kindness and strength had created something new in the galaxy. Something better. Humanity had taken the galaxy's contempt and turned it into respect. They had taken arrogance and returned it as humility. They had shown everyone that the truly strong don't need to prove it by hurting others. They prove it by protecting others. Ambassador Minho, now retired, gave one final speech at the United Nations. He was old now, his hair white, his face lined with the years, but his voice was still strong. We were tested, he said. The galaxy looked at us and decided we were weak. They were wrong. But here's the important part. We were also tested in victory. We could have become the very thing we fought against. We could have used our power to dominate, to conquer, to take revenge. We chose not to. That choice, the choice to remain kind even when we had the power to be cruel, that is what truly defines humanity. He looked out at the assembly, representatives from across Earth and beyond. Never forget the 47. Never forget what we learned. Be kind, be strong, and never let anyone confuse the two. Extend your hand in friendship, but make sure they see the fist beneath it ready if needed. That is how peace is maintained. That is how civilizations survive. That is how the galaxy becomes better. The speech ended with applause that lasted 10 minutes. When it finally faded, people stood and looked at each other with understanding. They had learned the price of arrogance. They had paid it. And they had built something better from the ashes. The galaxy would remember this lesson for generations. They took Earth's kindness for weakness. They learned the price. And in learning that price, everyone became better. Even the defeated. Especially the defeated. Peace, it turned out, was always possible. It just required the strength to enforce it when necessary, and the wisdom to be gentle when possible. Humanity had both, and they were teaching the galaxy to have both as well. The new order had begun, and it was kind, and it was strong, and it was just